Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, only the beginning. JBS, the world's largest meat producer, is mostly back online this morning after suffering a crippling ransomware attack earlier this week. What we now know about who's responsible. The times are a-changin'. A politically embattled Israel could be creating an entirely new form of government after opponents of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reached an agreement to oust the longtime leader. We'll dig into who could take the reins if negotiations succeed. To the moon, AMC, the movie theater company, is finally seeing its stock soar to new heights after being the underdog darling of armchair investors for months. But why now? We'll tell you what's behind the surge. And overcoming obstacles, the inspiring story of how a once down on his luck actor battling homelessness becomes a USC graduate with not one, but 2 degrees. His journey of perseverance that will bring you hope. It is such a cool story, though.
This is the time of year when we get all our inspiring graduation stories.
It's so true.
Too.
I know. And this year we're actually seeing graduations happen, which is so great for our seniors in both high school and college. We'll get to that story a little bit later, but we begin with the world's largest meat supplier getting back in gear this morning.
JBS says it is on track to resume production at near full capacity today. 4 days ago, the company was hit by a ransomware attack. JBS is far from the only target. We're hearing of major cyber attacks hitting transit authorities on the East Coast. New York City's MTA confirmed it was the target of an attack back in April, while the Steamship Authority of Massachusetts says it was also hit with a ransomware attack, causing ticketing delays on Wednesday. NBC News Now correspondent Dasha Burns is with us now for the very latest. So, Dasha, first, what more can you tell us about these other cyber attacks on the MTA and that ferry service?
Hey, Joe, good morning. Officials for the ferry service say that on Wednesday, customers were unable to book or change reservations online or by phone. They say that credit card systems were also impacted and that their computers were down for the first time in 40 years. They had to use paper slips instead. Meanwhile, officials for the MTA said that they learned they were the target of a cyber attack after an alert from intelligence agencies. They say that several systems were impacted, but that none of them involved the network that controls rail cars, including New York City subways, and that rider safety was not put at risk. The New York Times is also reporting that the MTA hack did not involve a ransom, but that it was part of a larger intrusion by hackers believed to be backed by the Chinese government, Joe.
Now, let's talk about the JBS attack. The FBI released a statement about it. What are officials saying?
Yeah, the FBI is saying that tackling cyber attacks is one of their highest priorities. They also revealed the 2 Russian-backed hacking groups they believe to be behind the JBS attack. They also said that they are working diligently to bring the threat actors to justice. They say they continue to focus efforts on imposing risk and consequences and holding the responsible cyber actors accountable, Joe.
Now, Dasha, this just comes 2 weeks before the Putin-Biden summit. How is the White House responding to what happened with JBS?
Well, President Biden said on Wednesday that he is examining whether the U.S. would retaliate. And the White House press secretary said that the increase in hacks by Russian-based groups would be an issue that the president will bring up when he meets with Putin in 2 weeks. Take a listen to what she had to say.
There will be an opportunity for the president to discuss this directly with President Putin to reiterate the fact that we believe that responsible states do not harbor ransomware criminals, and that, and as he said, as we said around Colonial and the Colonial hack or the Colonial ransomware attack, we will continue to be in direct touch with Moscow. We will continue to make the case that responsible countries need to take decisive action against ransomware networks.
She also said that no options were off the table with regard to a response, Joe.
A lot to discuss at that summit in a couple of weeks. Dasha Burns, thank you so much.
President Biden is rallying the nation in an effort to reach his goal of getting 70% of adults vaccinated by the 4th of July. Right now, about 63% of adults have had 1 dose and 52% are fully vaccinated. President Biden says the plan now is to focus on areas with low vaccination rates.
You know, we were elected to be president and vice president for all Americans. And I don't want to see the country that is already too divided become divided in a new way between places where people live free from fear of COVID and places where, when the fall arrives, death and severe illnesses return.
Let's bring in Dr. Anand Swaminathan. He's an assistant professor of emergency medicine at St. Joseph's Hospital. Doctor, we always love when you join us. Good to see you. So let's talk about this goal and what it means in terms of getting us to this idea of herd immunity. We've thrown that term around quite a bit. We don't know exactly what that number is. It's been something between 70 and 80% or so. But of course, that's the whole population. And this goal here is targeting adults. How many people do you think need to be vaccinated to avoid a major uptick in COVID cases in the fall? Or is that inevitable? Do you think we can be out of the woods from these big spikes?
I think we can get there. I think we can get out of the woods. What the exact number is, we're not sure of. Whether it's 70%, 80%, we look to a country like Israel where they have over 80% of adults have been vaccinated, and their case rate is extremely low, and they're almost back to a normal kind of life. Many of their restrictions have been removed. So maybe that's the number. 75, 80% is where we need to get to. We don't know exactly what it is. And what we're going to see, unless things really change with how vaccinations are being done in different communities, what we're going to see is a real disparity. We're going to see some areas in the fall where vaccination rates are very high and things are almost normal. It's a very nuanced kind of approach. But if you have a community where your vax rates are 90% or higher, you're going to be able to do things because your case rate's going to be very low. Death rates are going to be almost non-existent. And then we're going to have places where they're really lagging behind. We talk about if it's 50% who are fully vaccinated around the country, we have areas that are 20, 30%. And those areas are going to be hit hard again in the fall unless they start ramping up. So the efforts that the Biden administration are making to really reach out to those communities and get them vaccinated are important. Unless we see a real uptick in those areas, we're going to have the same problems come fall. They're just going to be outbreaks that are isolated in different areas, but those can spill over. We can see new variants start to spread, variants that our vaccines don't work as well against. So there's a real danger unless everybody gets vaccinated.
And this idea of community spread is something that's going to have a big impact on something else that comes in the fall, which is kids heading back to school. Several states, including Texas and Iowa, have recently passed measures that eliminate mask mandates in school. First, let's listen to what Dr. Anthony Fauci told NBC's Kate Snow last night about this.
If the level of virus goes way, 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 way down, and most of the teachers are being vaccinated, and we know that there's going to be 80% plus who will be vaccinated, it is conceivable that the CDC will pull back. But, you don't want to get ahead of that recommendation until you see what the level of infection is at that particular time.
So, Doctor, Kate had been asking him about kids 12 and under, so those not eligible for the vaccine. So do you think there's a chance CDC guidance could change for that age group even without a vaccination being approved for them? And what could that guidance look like?
I think it's going to be very complicated and nuanced because it's going to depend community to community of what rates look like. So if you live in a community where 100% of adults are vaccinated, obviously infection rates are going to be very low. It probably is safe for kids to go unmasked indoors just because the rates of cases are so low. Now, of course, there's a lot of nuance in that because if the kids are moving between communities, they can still contract and then bring it back to their community. So we have to look at that. And this makes it really hard unless everybody is getting vaccinated to know what to do. So I tell you, my kids are still staying masked in school. I want them to be masked in school. My oldest is getting his second vaccine today. And the best way to get kids into school and unmasked is to get those vaccines. So for 12 and up, you're approved, get a vaccine. For 12 and under, we're going to have to wait a little bit. We're going to have to wait until that data comes out. And hopefully by the fall, we'll see that happening.
Yeah, I interviewed Anthony Fauci about a week or so ago, and I was asking him about all this stuff, and his only answer was pretty much just the only way to solve it is that everybody gets vaccinated, which sounds similar to what you're saying here. I want to talk now about China's staggering pace to get people vaccinated. These numbers are impressive. The Associated Press is reporting China gave out 100 million shots in just 5 days, and Chinese public health leaders are now saying that they're hoping to inoculate 80% of the population of 1.4 billion with a B by the end of next year. That's a huge task. I mean, what would it mean to have that significant portion of the world's population vaccinated when we know that everyone getting vaccinated in countries across the globe is what's going to stop these variants, those types of things? And also, what can the U.S. learn from China's strategy here?
Yeah, that point is really important. We have to get the globe vaccinated in order to really fight this pandemic properly. And we see some really good measures being done in China in terms of there's a really unified message being sent out. There's coordination between local governments and the state government, as well as schools and places of employment, really all coming together to do this. Now, there's obviously problems too, because there's some civil liberties issues, obviously, with the way that it's being rolled out. There are still access issues going on in China. But what we can take away from it is really important for employers to get behind this. Can we get shots to employees where they work? Can we give people time off? We've seen the Biden administration now supporting businesses and giving time off, supporting individuals and getting childcare. Those are really important measures to make. So it is really important for us to see this kind of global level of vaccination. But this is just one country. We need to really push our vaccination rates in lots of different countries where we see them really, really kind of lagging behind other places. And that's going to be a huge problem unless we really want to suppress this pandemic.
All right, Dr. Swaminathan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
As America reopens, many businesses now face a new challenge, bringing back workers and doing it quickly. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster. He's at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood, Florida, where a job fair is taking place today. So, Shaq, this hotel is one of many hoping to make a comeback this summer after a tough year. But first, they need to fill hundreds of positions. How do they plan to do that in such a short period of time?
Really a rush to fill these positions. This hotel is looking to fill about 500 positions, but today's job fair is focused on about 80 hospitality-focused positions. And just take a look at this building. It's a beautiful building. It's one that actually went through a major expansion just months before the start of this pandemic. And obviously things slowed down, things shut down during the pandemic, and now they're looking to refill many of these positions. You ask how they're trying to do this. Well, really, it goes to the perks that employees and potential employees will be able to get, including a $300 sign-on bonus that will come after about 90 days, about 3 months of employment. There's free meals, free lunches for employees, weekly pay. You also see flexible schedules that this company is touting for the people who come in for this job fair. So there's a big rush to fill these positions, and the big thing that they're doing right now is trying to incentivize as many people as possible to come in and fill these positions. We saw a job fair like this happen at their location in Tampa, and we heard from the hiring manager there that this is something that has been somewhat of a challenge for them. They've been trying to get as many employees as possible, and that kind of goes into the perks that they're offering people who come into this job fair today.
I feel like Nashville is very jealous of that building right now. Shaq, for weeks now, we've been talking about the labor shortage nationwide. How hard has it been for the hospitality industry?
Yeah. It's been incredibly hard. You've been seeing a real crunch in terms of hospitality industry employers trying to get employees to come in. And, one thing that you'll see, there's some data to back this up. Look at the survey that we pulled for you. This is a Pew Research study from back in January, and it showed that 66% of unemployed adults have considered changing their occupation or field of work. There's another survey that showed among people looking for new jobs post-pandemic, about 72% of them are rethinking their skill sets. Something that we've seen is that with the pandemic, when people were furloughed, when people were laid off, they got to experiment with new things. They got to experiment with different things. And you're noticing that's part of the reason why many of these companies are struggling to find and fill these positions. You have other people saying that it's the unemployment benefits, the federally boosted unemployment benefits that also are a factor in all of this. But you have a situation where you talk to people, they're finding new things, they're changing what their interests are, what their passions are. And that's affecting the workforce and the ability of people to be able to fill places like this in terms of working and having the operations go smoothly.
And of course, those unemployment benefits you mentioned will end in Florida this month. All right, Shaq Brewster, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
President Biden is continuing to try to negotiate a bipartisan deal on his infrastructure package, hosting a meeting with Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito at the White House. NBC News correspondent Leanne Caldwell joins us now. Leanne, good morning. So what came out of this meeting? Any indications we're closer to a deal?
Good morning, Savannah. Well, both sides after that meeting put out pretty matter-of-fact, bland statements. And we're now getting more details about what actually came from that meeting. Senator Capito briefed the 5 other Republicans on her negotiating team about this last night, saying that President Biden was adamant that this plan needs to be paid for with new taxes, something that Republicans have opposed. Also saying that the Republican plan was not big enough. They need more spending, actually, in order to meet where the Democrats are. So they're still very far apart, Savannah.
So, Leanne, what's next then for these negotiations?
Well, the Republicans are expected to present another counteroffer, perhaps as soon as Friday. We expect Senator Capito to also meet with President Biden, or at least talk to him again on Friday as well. But time is really running out. There's a lot of progressive Democrats, especially, who want the president to stop negotiating with Republicans and just go alone with Democrats. And Republicans are going to have a choice to make. How long do they drag out these negotiations for? The White House has that same choice, but it seems like time is of the essence, Savannah.
Now, Leanne, another big debate in the Senate has focused on the filibuster, and Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona defended it yesterday, saying we shouldn't change the rules, we should change behavior. How is that being received by her party?
Well, she said that the day after President Biden didn't name her specifically, but mentioned 2 Democratic senators, Sinema and Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, saying that they are blockades to the agenda because they don't support the eliminating the filibuster. The reality is that regardless of the pressure these 2 members are getting from Democrats, even President Biden, they are not changing their position. So the filibuster will remain intact for the time being, meaning that the Democrats' agenda is much more difficult to pass, Savannah.
All right, Leanne, thank you so much.
Time to get a check on your morning news now weather.
Which means that Bill Cairns is here. Hi, Bill. Good morning.
All right. Did you guys bring your big umbrellas?
I did.
I did not.
Yeah. So one of you listened to me yesterday, and the other one we have to work on that. Yes. So that's great.
Sorry.
All right. So let's dive into this. So, yes, it is pouring in many areas of the eastern half of the country. Yesterday was a rainy day in the Tennessee Valley and the Ohio Valley. Today we're shifting it to the Northeast. We're already watching a lot of downpours through areas of eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, an area of heavy rain just south of St. Louis, and now some of that rain sneaking up to Virginia Beach and Norfolk. So it's going to be one of those days where we're going to have scattered showers and storms. It's not going to rain the entire day. We'll probably get a break during the mid-afternoon, and then this evening we're going to watch some strong storms popping up. Watch out, 29 million people at risk. Wind damage with these storms are possible. This includes the I-95 corridor from Richmond to Washington to Baltimore to Philadelphia and just outside of New York City. And we even have a slight chance of an isolated tornado, so we can't rule that out. And here's kind of the timing of that mess. Notice that by about 8 p.m., most of the action is over with. So the timing is really about 5 p.m. to about 8 p.m. for that I-95 corridor. And then we should watch on Friday, this kind of storm system lingers a little bit, especially eastern North Carolina and along the coastal areas. We may get some additional showers and storms. And of course, our heat wave in the west, guys, isn't going anywhere. It's going to be about 106 in Phoenix, mid to upper 90s from Salt Lake City through Montana. We'll talk more about the weekend forecast and how that heat wave is heading east coming up next hour.
All right.
I'll think of you when I'm walking home in the rain. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
That's what you get for not listening to Bill. Thanks, Bill.
Coming up, closed because of the pandemic. That has been the message from the Biden administration when it comes to the southern border.
But on the ground, some migrants are experiencing a different reality. We'll explain next.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on the verge of losing his 12-year grip on power after opposition leaders reached a last-minute deal to form a new government. 8 different parties with highly opposing ideologies from across the political spectrum are now joining forces. That includes the United Arab List, which became the first Arab party to join an Israeli government. Centrist Yair Lapid put together the alliance with right-wing nationalist Naftali Bennett. Both men have agreed to serve 2 years each as prime minister. NBC News foreign correspondent Kelly Kobiea joins us now from Tel Aviv with more. Kelly, good morning.
Joe, good morning to you. It's hard to overstate just how historic this coalition is. Never before has Israel seen a nationalist right-wing politician, the leader of a party, join forces with the leader of an Arab party. This is unheard of in this country. And the only thing bringing them together is their desire to see Benjamin Netanyahu out. This morning, a stunning political defeat for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, sure to affect the U.S.-Israel relationship.
We are the winner. We win. We won this fight.
The longest-serving prime minister in Israeli history, who had a strong alliance with President Trump and a more fraught relationship with Democratic presidents, is being pushed out.
Mr. Netanyahu, is this your last week as prime minister?
Where's your question?
His one-time defense minister, right-wing nationalist politician Naftali Bennett, smiling side by side with an Arab party leader, Mansour Abbas, last night. The two joining forces, a first in Israel, to create an opposition coalition to replace Netanyahu. Negotiations went down to the final hour, confirmed in a late-night phone call and email. The remarkable alliance comes 2 weeks into a fragile ceasefire with Hamas, following the worst violence between Israeli Arabs and Jews in years. Netanyahu's likely replacement, Naftali Bennett, is the son of American immigrants, a tech tycoon who has taken a hard line against a potential Palestinian state. Netanyahu's political base is still strong. Known as the comeback king here, he could still break the coalition apart. The deal still has to be voted on by the Israeli parliament. That could happen as early as next week. Joe?
Kelly Kobier, thank you so much. Vital aid to Syrian refugees camped out on the border with Turkey could soon be cut off, a move that would put millions at risk. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Andrea Mitchell reports from Turkey.
Good morning, Savannah and Joe. Today, I'll be at Turkey's border with Syria, along with our UN ambassador, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, as she tries to shed light on a refugee crisis that could cut aid off from millions of Syrian refugees on the other side of the border. Tonight, a crisis in Syria near the border with Turkey. Millions of refugees bombed out of their homes by the Assad regime during 10 years of civil war. Children working for pennies a day, scavenging through garbage, and now COVID spreading. This widow, Khan, with 9 children. Their home destroyed by a bomb, 2 of her children losing part of their arms, a third badly burned from shrapnel. She says, I wish my hand was chopped off, not theirs. These kids who are injured need everything, she says. They need help. They need everything. But Russia, supporting Syria's Assad regime, is now threatening to close the last of 4 corridors for Western aid trucks, a lifeline to 4 million people, including her son, Rakan, who says, there are kids who are sicker than I am, and they need this. Emergency medics, the volunteer white helmets, trying to do what they can.
The coronavirus, from since a year until now, made the situation worse. If they close the border, if they will close the border after a month, it will be disaster for everyone.
So the U.S. UN ambassador is at the border trying to keep the pressure on Russia to let the aid keep flowing, an issue that President Biden is going to be raising with Vladimir Putin when they meet in Geneva at their summit just 2 weeks from now. Savannah and Joe, back to you.
Now to the crisis at the border, where a record number of migrants are making the dangerous journey into the U.S. The Biden administration insists the border is closed because of the pandemic, but that's not quite the story on the ground. NBC News Justice correspondent Julia Ainsley joins us to tell us what the story on the ground is after being there. Julia, good morning. We're happy to have you here with your reporting.
Thanks for having me, Savannah. So I've just returned from southern Texas, where we were able to join Border Patrol as they went out and found and apprehended many migrants. And what we found was a very conflicting story. We found some migrants, a mother and son, who might have been very vulnerable should they be pushed back into Mexico, who had previously been pushed back under the president's Title 42 policy that was started at the beginning of the pandemic under Trump. Meanwhile, you'll see adult men who are released. So really what it comes down to is there's a reality, what we're hearing in Washington, that the border is closed. And then there are people who are released. And because of that release, it makes it very hard for migrants to decide, is this dangerous journey worth it when they're deciding whether or not to come to the United States? We also got some officials on the record about that. Take a look.
It's nighttime in the Rio Grande Valley. These are some of the record number of migrants Border Patrol agents encounter every day. Families brought by smugglers turning themselves in because many told us they believe they'll be allowed to stay. Officially, the Biden administration says the border is closed because of the pandemic. Only unaccompanied children can come into the U.S.
The border is closed.
But that's not the reality here on the ground.
Some who have crossed have been allowed to stay, creating confusion for would-be migrants who wonder if the dangerous journey north is worth risking their lives.
We met Anna and her 7-year-old son, Walter, who said they tried to enter the U.S. last month, but were expelled to Mexico and kidnapped. Now she's trying again.
I don't want to go back. I'm afraid. I'm very afraid.
But in a migrant shelter nearby, we found at least 20 adult men who authorities are allowing to stay in the U.S. to await asylum hearings.
Do you know why you've been allowed to stay in the United States?
No sé realmente.
I don't really know.
We asked the Border Patrol chief here.
It's a stated policy that we here in Washington is that only unaccompanied children are allowed in right now. But what we saw firsthand in this sector is that even single adult males are being released.
We have to depend a lot of times on what the capability or capacity of Mexico is to receive those families.
He says if Mexico won't take them back, they're released here.
Does that make it hard here for your men and women trying to send a message that the border is closed?
It does. We need a system that is able to provide that humanitarian relief while also being able to provide national security, border security. We're struggling with that due to the high numbers that we're seeing.
Chief Hastings told us so far this year, 17% of all families and single adults apprehended by his agents have been released into the U.S., motivating migrants to keep coming.
Did anyone tell you you'll be able to stay?
I heard people say that they were giving permission.
Even if for most, their American dream may not be as close as they'd hoped.
So you can see there, it's really a challenge to the Biden administration policy of trying to be both orderly and humane, because when Mexico won't take these people back, it really just comes down to a matter of when and where you cross the border, not the merits of your asylum case or what you've been through.
All right, Julia, really great reporting. Thank you so much.
Let's take a look at what else is making news around the world this morning.
We have Raf Sanchez with us today. Good morning, Raf.
Joe, Savannah, good morning. The Queen's courtiers banned non-white immigrants from working certain roles at Buckingham Palace. That's according to a new report in The Guardian. It says royal archives show non-white immigrants could not work as clerical staff. The palace didn't deny the report of these bans back in the 1960s, but said it shouldn't be used to draw conclusions about modern practices. With 50 days to go, the president of the Tokyo Olympics says canceling the games is not an option. There is widespread opposition to the Olympics in Japan because of the risk of COVID, and more than 10% of the 80,000 people who volunteered for the games have now pulled out. And finally, a star-studded coalition is swooping in to try to save Venice. Mick Jagger, Francis Ford Coppola, and Tilda Swinton among the celebrities writing to the Italian government calling for the canal city to be given special status so it can be preserved. And guys, Venice gets more than 30 million visitors every year, but its resident population has shrunk to fewer than 50,000.
Wow.
Didn't know that.
Me either. Oh, gosh. Whenever we show Italy pictures, doesn't just make you want to take a trip. I love that. They're saving it. Raf, thanks so much. Coming up, inside the Biden administration's proposed higher education overhaul.
The hefty price tag that comes along with free community college. Next. Singer Ricky Martin is opening up about his interview with Barbara Walters back in 2000, saying it gave him post-traumatic stress disorder. Take a listen.
And with you, there have been the rumors that question or talk about your sexual orientation. You must be aware of these rumors.
Of course.
Okay. Do they hurt? How do you handle them?
The word says it. Intimacy. Sexuality and homosexuality should not be a problem for anybody. I think that sexuality is something that each individual should deal with in their own way.
Martin told People magazine that he felt violated by the interview because he was not ready to come out as gay, adding, quote, "There's a little PTSD with that." Martin did come out 10 years later in 2010. Walters has since apologized for the interview, calling it one of the biggest regrets. Of her career. So, and I remember that one from 20 years ago. Hard to believe it's been that long.
It's been really interesting to see so many of these interviews re-examined years later and just sort of see how we've changed how we're approaching so many different things in a way that really can make people feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, and what we didn't see in that clip there was she at one point she really just tried to pressure him to say yes or no, are you? And that was really, I think, the big message, the big thing that she regretted.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
It's graduation season, and right now students and all of us are celebrating all their accomplishments. It comes as the Biden administration is proposing a new program to give all Americans free community college. Ali Vitale joins us now with more on this. Ali, good morning. Good to see you.
Hey, Savannah, good to see you too. You're right. This is a season of celebration of these graduates' accomplishments, but also for millions of American families, it's thinking about the future. And in that case, it likely means higher education. The question for these families right now, though, is how to do that with the most financial sense. And this Biden plan aims to help. Look.
Miranda Kamakala was set to go to a private 4-year college to study nursing.
I had felt this is a school for me.
Chris Goosens earned a baseball scholarship to the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. But when the students sat down with calculators, they discovered even with financial aid, the cost of a 4-year degree didn't add up.
Amherst was north of $70,000 per year. Over 4 years, that's over $250,000.
I was figuring out the loans I was going to have to repay, and it just wasn't feasible.
That's why the two decided to go to community college instead. And they're hardly alone. According to a new poll, nearly half of American families are rethinking the value of a 4-year college. Since 1985, the average cost of attending a 4-year university has risen nearly 500%, resulting in sky-high student loan debt. Now, the Biden administration is looking to make higher education affordable for all, providing Americans with free community college.
Research shows when a young child goes to school, not daycare, they're far more likely to graduate from high school. When you add 2 years of free community college on top of that, you begin to change the dynamic.
Biden's proposal would waive tuition for 2 years of public community college and provide students cash to cover expenses, including childcare, mental health services, and tutoring, ushering millions of mostly black and brown students into higher ed. But the plan comes with a hefty price tag, $256 billion. And critics aren't so sure it's worth it, noting community colleges traditionally have high dropout rates and often don't lead to top-dollar jobs.
Community colleges don't have a great history of setting people up for, to make very high earnings. And so if we're getting people going to community colleges instead of a higher quality institution that they would have gone absent this additional funding, then we're actually making that person worse off.
Another potential pitfall? Biden's plan is a mixed bag for states, with some paying more to support community college programs than they already do. But back on campus, Chris says community colleges provide students with the kind of practical job training many 4-year schools lack.
I actually have a job already lined up for when I graduate this summer, working for a hip-hop company. I think community colleges, people need to realize how beneficial they actually are. I hope more people do realize that.
And Savannah, it seems like more people are at least beginning to consider how efficient community college can be. I have to tell you, politically, this plan and this part of the Biden plan remains a little bit in limbo. It's part of those multi-trillion-dollar packages that are currently working their way through the Hill right now. But from a personal perspective, just talking to these students, they feel really good about their decision. They were not just clear-eyed about the financials, all of this conversation about student loan debt clearly weighing on them and their families. But at the same time, they were also really self-assured this was the right path for them and more people should be open to it, they say.
All right, Allie, great piece there showing all sides. Thank you so much.
The fight over voter rights in Texas is far from over. Lawmakers failed to pass a restrictive voting bill over the weekend. Now a key Republican lawmaker is blaming a typo for a controversial provision in the bill. NBCNews.com senior political reporter Jane Tim joins us now. So, Jane, that so-called typo has to do with a provision that would limit Sunday morning voting in Texas. Explain what's going on here.
So the bill that Texas Republicans tried to pass would have made early voting on Sunday only legal after 1 p.m., which critics said was a direct attack on Black voters who often organize Souls to the Polls events where you go to church collectively, usually in a big van, with your church immediately after Sunday services. So if you have to wait till 1 p.m., you sort of put a wrench in these plans. But after the bill failed, and Republicans defended this key provision, after the bill failed, we're starting to hear this about this typo. Let's listen to what one of the key Republicans said on NPR.
That's one of the things I look forward to with fixing the most. Call it a Scribner's error, whatever you want to. But I talked to our team yesterday, kind of regrouping of what happened. That was not intended to be reduced. I think there was call it a mistake if you want to. What should have been 11 was actually printed up as 1.
Now, Rep. Clardy's colleagues in the Senate specifically defended that 1 p.m. start, saying that poll workers wanted to go to church too. So I think we can be clear this is an about face, but it does mean that we are likely to see this change in whatever bill they do bring up later.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. Republicans say they may try to pass the bill in a special session. What are Democrats saying about that?
You know, Democrats feel pretty good after the last weekend. This was a surprising success for them. It's hard to defeat a bill when you don't have the votes to stop one, but they were able to do that with parliamentary measures. They know this bill is going to come back. They're just trying to keep the pressure on so that provisions like that hurt certain groups of voters, particularly Black voters in Texas, won't make it into the final bill.
So what is next? What can we expect to see happen with this legislation in the coming months?
So this delay stops the process. It has to go all the way back to the beginning, which means in Texas, you have to go and introduce the bill into committee. They could introduce the final bill that they tried to vote on this weekend, or they could start new and try and edit it. I think we're seeing, as you say, some edits, some tempering probably, but they have to go to committee hearings. They have to have public hearings. It's going to take weeks to do it again. Whenever they do start this special session, which is likely to be late summer, could even be in the fall.
All right. Jane Tim, thanks so much. Coming up, more Derby drama. Medina Spirit, the controversial winner of the Kentucky Derby, failed a second drug test.
Now Churchill Downs is quickly taking action against its famed trainer. We told you there's drama. We've got all the deets next.
Time for our CNBC Money Minute, the biggest financial headlines of the day and why they matter to you.
CNBC correspondent Contessa Brewer joins us again today. Hey, Contessa, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. Listen, big news coming out of the banking industry. Ally Financial is getting rid of overdraft fees. This is a major move because, of course, banks have relied on overdraft fees for decades to boost their profits. But often it's at the expense of poor Americans who can't afford those fees in the first place. Ally looks at the impact the fees have on Black and Latino households, which historically have been hit more often with these overdraft fees. And it's one reason why some of these marginalized households choose to go unbanked or go without a bank account. So Ally Financial says no more. Tesla's recalling hundreds of Model 3 vehicles shipped to China. It follows the recall of tens of thousands of Tesla cars in the U.S. and China over the last several months. The company is under real scrutiny by Chinese regulators because of negative reports by media and consumers about accidents and brake failures. Tesla opened a factory in Shanghai in 2019 and began delivering Model 3s to customers from there last year. And Spotify wraps up each year with its popular Wrap feature, sums up the music that defined your year. Now it's launching more tools that are year-round, rolling out a new digital experience called Only You, which gives users a personalized playlist in a shareable form based on their own listening history. Among the highlights that you could share with your friends, your dream dinner party. You pick 3 artists that you would invite to a dinner party. Spotify makes a mix for each.
Kentucky Derby winner Medina Spirit could be stripped of that title after failing a second drug test.
The horse's Hall of Fame trainer is now suspended from Churchill Downs for 2 years. NBC News correspondent Megan Fitzgerald has more.
Savannah and Joe, good morning. Horse racing experts are calling this the darkest day in the sport's history. 2 positive blood tests of a regulated substance puts the Kentucky Derby winner at greater risk of being disqualified.
Churchill Downs announcing famed trainer Bob Baffert suspended from entering a horse at the Kentucky Derby for the next 2 years after weeks of controversy around his horse Medina Spirit, winner of the Derby.
Medina Spirit has won the Kentucky Derby!
A second blood test coming back positive for betamethasone, increasing the colt's risk of being stripped of his Derby title.
It now kicks off the process of possibly having him disqualified and the money returned in the Kentucky Derby.
Baffert denied the allegations.
It's not in the barn, so there's no way that we gave it.
Before walking it back and saying a topical ointment used on the horse may have contained the drug. The trainer saying in a statement through his attorney that they expect additional testing to confirm that the presence of the betamethasone was from the topical ointment Otamax and not an injection.
The initial decision will be made by a 3-member stewards panel out of Churchill Downs. From there, he can appeal whatever decision is.
A 3-member panel at Churchill Downs will determine if Medina Spirit keeps the winning title, but Bob Baffert can always appeal that decision. Savannah and Joe.
Hey, breaking news this morning. AMC Entertainment says it plans to sell more than 11 million shares after its stock soared to record highs yesterday.
The movie theater chain triggered several trading halts yesterday as it doubled its stock price and closed at an all-time high of $62.55 a share. That's up more than 2,800% year to date. Oh my goodness, that is a huge number. Here to break that down, what's happening is NBC News senior business correspondent Stephanie Ruhle. Steph, okay, I could have talked to you for hours about what was going on with GameStop, and now we have this happening with AMC, but we do know the stock is falling because we issued those more shares.
Yeah, let's just talk about that for 1 second, right? We have seen GameStop. We have seen AMC on a tear, up almost 3,000% on the year. It was up over 100% yesterday. So from the company's perspective, they're like, holy cow, all these people want to buy my stock. Let's issue more. Because if you're a company and you issue more stock, that's more money coming in the door for you. Now, if you're a shareholder, you don't want more stock in the system. Remember, in the game of supply and demand, you want to limit supply and you want demand to go up. That drives the price up. So, you're starting to see the market go down a little bit, but that's almost a side game. This is really about these meme stocks.
Yeah, so tell us that.
What is a meme stock? This is a publicly traded company that has had huge gains, in some cases losses, but huge gains because basically a band of individual investors has used social media to create this frenzy and drive up the price of a stock. And people could say, listen, everybody wants to buy movie theaters right now because it's a reopening trade. The pandemic is almost behind us. We're going back to the movies. However, where this is trading is so far away from where AMC even was before the pandemic. At some point in this game of hot potato, somebody is going to be left holding the bag because the earning potential of this company is nowhere near where the stock is trading.
Now, we know AMC wanted to thank all these investors with special gifts and things like that. I mean, tell us more about this. And is this sort of a house of cards at this point with this, or what's,
Okay, yeah. So any traditional investor, any professional investor would say this is a house of cards. This is a game of hot potato. Somebody is going to end up the fool. However, for these individual investors, they're saying, well, I'm not the fool today. If I bought that stock in November and it's up 3,000%, you don't want me in the game because you never let me in, right? So that's the argument from these individuals who are saying, you just don't want me swimming in your pool. At the end of the day, someone is going to lose their shirt in a very big way. It hasn't happened yet. It's going to. But to say that people are getting scammed or swindled, come on, every day we're talking about this, and there are loads of warning signs, yet these individual investors, these Reddit traders are saying, I don't care, AMC to the moon. But it's not just AMC. You have companies like AMC, Bed Bath & Beyond, BlackBerry. I mean, Bed Bath & Beyond. The last person who loved Bed Bath & Beyond was my mother and her 20% off coupon. The last person that loved a BlackBerry were my kids using my 15-year-old BlackBerry as a cell phone when they were toddlers. Like, we are nowhere near any rational behavior. But all these players are saying, who cares? You know how much money I made?
I actually thought it was interesting. The company themselves said, we don't believe this has really anything to do with our business or our macro, but hey, like, thanks for doing this.
Okay, but the company really needs to say that, because at the end of the day, regulators are pouring all over this. And if regulators find out that the company is misleading investors, if you're an officer of a company, if you're a CEO of the company, and you are misleading investors about what your actual earning potential is, you could be in enormous amount of trouble. So the company has to say, listen, you want to buy our stock? Thank you. To your point, I'm going to give you free popcorn and offer you free movie screenings. But the company cannot host an investor day and say, you're right, boys and girls, we're worth this. They'll be in serious trouble.
Wall Street bets, man. It's crazy. All right.
20% off coupon, Bed Bath & Beyond. You and Louise rule.
I still use mine for my soda stream.
When you don't have it, you're super upset. You don't want to shop there unless you have it.
Exactly.
It's true.
All right, Steph, thank you so much.
All right.
Coming up, from living out of a car to graduating with 2 degrees from USC, we'll bring you one incredible story of perseverance.
After this. Just a few years ago, Ethan Ward was living out of his car. In May, he got a master's degree in public policy, one of 2 degrees he earned at USC. Stay tuned. Maya Eaglin takes us through his incredible journey.
Sometimes things just do not work out the way that you think they're going to work out.
In May, 38-year-old Ethan Ward graduated from USC with 2 degrees, an undergrad in journalism and a master's in public diplomacy. But in 2010, he had other dreams of being an actor.
I started taking acting classes and really hitting the ground, but it is grinding work. I did it for like 4 years until I realized that I did not have the passion for it. Then it was like, okay, do you go back to DC? Do you stay here? And if you are going to stay here, then what is the plan? I decided that I wanted to stay, but then it kind of sent me into like a depression because I had to like really stop and think about what it is that I wanted to do with my life.
Ethan got depressed, his sister calling the police after not hearing from him for months. It was then he knew things had to change. So at 34, he enrolled at community college to get his life back on track. But with only part-time jobs and no steady income, Ethan had to live in his car.
I initially went into it like, oh, I'm going to be like camping. I actually Googled how to live in your car. The reality is that what they don't have online is telling you about the mental toll that it takes on you to do something like that.
He was juggling 2 lives. One as a student and another being homeless.
Your life becomes consumed with where am I going to charge my phone? Where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to clean myself? So I had to constantly fight that. Like, and I don't care anymore. I give up. There were so many nights that I would be in my car and I would like literally be crying because I would think like, oh my God, is tonight going to be the night that someone like attacks me?
He knew he had to break out of the cycle of homelessness. He had to graduate.
I knew that if I was able to transfer, that I would likely get housing offered to me at the university that I was going to transfer to.
And he did. He got into USC, got financial help, got into campus housing, and now Ethan's using his own story to inspire others.
When I got into USC, I wrote in my application about my experience. So I thought the only person that would see this is the admissions officer. And God bless her, so she actually told someone at USC, and then they reached out to me and were like, we want to talk about this. First I was like, no, I don't want anyone to know that I was living in my car and going through all of this stuff. That's embarrassing. But I had just read a book by Shonda Rhimes. She talks about how she decided for 1 year she was going to say yes to every opportunity that came her way. And I was like, don't be afraid, just do it. I was like, sure, I'll do it. I found that people were so supportive, and LACC ended up seeing the story, and then they asked me to come and speak there. And they told me when I came to speak that we decided to open up showers and laundry facilities here on campus So other students that are experiencing homelessness will have access to showers and laundry so they can keep their clothes clean and keep clean so they can feel inspired to still want to come to class. And that for me was like, okay, this was so beyond me and me being embarrassed.
What did this teach you about life?
No one has it all figured out. We're doing the best that we can. And once you kind of realize that, it makes it so much easier to be open and embrace life and embrace opportunities that are coming your way.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.